Greetings again, friends. I am here today to talk about a subject that you have probably seen some video footage for. Now, you may be familiar with what I'm talking about. There's lots of things we could say about this, and I want to discuss this on several different levels. Now, if you notice the picture that was for the thumbnail for this video, you would see three different stances for this subject I'm going to talk about today, taking a knee. So take a knee. Now, if your head has been in the sand, you may not be aware of protests all over the world, but anyone who knows about what happened to George Floyd knows that his murder, because of really the fact that this officer kept his knee on his throat or on his neck, close to his throat where his carotid artery was, and did that for 8 minutes plus. I mean, that was excessive. That shouldn't have been done. There was no need to do it. And so it's led to these protests all over this country and even all over the world. I just saw a video of protesters in London, thousands of them even taking a knee. So this symbol, taking a knee, has become something that's very big right now in our culture and even around the world, related to the particular issue currently of basically protesting racism or racial injustice. So what I wanted to do today is to address this in this video of this idea of taking a knee, or bowing the knee, as you might have heard. Now you could go back and you could look at this from way back in cultures. I was even looking at it biblically and doing a search on that, which I'll talk more about in a minute. And it was talking about how Joseph, when he was in Egypt and Pharaoh made him to be in this position of authority in Egypt because of how God worked with Joseph to interpret his dreams, Pharaoh had Joseph to go through Egypt, and he was the top person in the land, and everyone was to bow the knee, as it says there in Genesis. And so we could look at different examples like that. So it's been around for a long time as far as bowing a knee or taking a knee. In fact, think about it for a minute. I mean, you look back in history, you see that a way that people would show respect to an authority, to a king or someone, was to take a knee. And they would do so and bow before the king or the authority, and that would show the allegiance or humility to that authority. So you have this being something done throughout time and throughout human history, and you see different examples of it. But what we see today brings me to the point of making this video about this, because what we see today is a lot of protesters taking a knee, and even in these rallies where there's thousands of people, mostly in cities around the country, bigger cities especially, mostly what they're doing is they're asking people to take a knee, or they're chanting it. They're demanding that police officers there to help take care of the crowd will take a knee. And you can go watch some of these videos where it says, take a knee, take a knee. I've watched some of them where they say in this, they're trying to demand that the officers take a knee. Now, some of these officers have taken a knee and done so to try to show solidarity or agreement or unity on this issue over what happened to George Floyd. So you've got different things going on. Now, if you've been engaged in any of the controversy over taking a knee, or if you do a simple search online, you can see that in the search online, you will also come up with a lot of controversy and a lot of articles related to what quarterback Colin Kaepernick did in 2016 in a preseason game. And it's a similar issue that he was protesting, what he called racial injustice. And so he took a knee during the national anthem. So 2016 is sort of the current modern day beginning of this in a greater cultural understanding, and it has become sort of the symbol of the protests that are going on all around this country. Many of those protests actually being hijacked or degrading to the place where there's violence and where there's looting, and even to the tragic part where you've had a dozen or so more killed because of the protest. It's just crazy, the stuff that's going on and the way that it's being presented, and it's caused stores to close early. It's caused curfews to be all around the country because of concerns, and the craziness gets to where people will take water bottles and have frozen water in them, and they'll just throw them at people, which can hurt someone, bruise them, maybe even breaks something on them if it's hit just right. Or some even fill the bottles up with concrete, and they take bricks and they throw it at people. Now, I'm not wanting to take this video and make it be about the craziness and the wrong of the violence and the looting, going in, breaking windows, setting things on fire. I mean, that's just wrong. That's ridiculous, and it in no way is justified to be able to do another wrong for the wrong that was done. If you do that, everybody's just going to be at war all the time. Two wrongs don't make a right, and you certainly don't have peace coming from people continually going back and forth with what's wrong. I mean, that's essentially what you've got in the Middle East, where you've got, somebody does something, and then there's a retaliation and a retaliation and a retaliation, and goes back and forth. It's been doing that for hundreds, thousands of years in the controversies going there. So it never ends. There's got to be a stop to the bloodshed and to the violence, but we're seeing that in this country more. But I want to hit this issue of taking a knee, in particular, related to the way that you take a knee, or why you might even take a knee. Now, when you think about it, all right, as I mentioned, in history, you show people taking a knee to show reverence to the authority, to show submission, allegiance, humility. I also thought about it in reference to this. I mean, what happens when there's an engagement? What happens when a man would propose to a woman? He would get down on one knee. I mean, that's sort of the symbol of that, and he expresses to her his commitment to her as a woman, and gives that engagement ring to her, and he's down on one knee when he asks her to marry her. So that is a positive way that it could be. And going back to the picture that was on this thumbnail again. Now I have one that where I'm kneeling down on that red mat and I've got my fist up, and that's the type of anger that comes with the protest that leads to the craziness, that leads to the violence, that leads to the wrong. Not a peaceful protest, but the looting and the harm to property and persons. And friend, if you think that's right or justified somehow, then you better check your morality a little, because that certainly in no way is justified, because where in the world would that end, as I said, or how can you justify that as being something that's good, that you purposefully maim people that have nothing to do with a particular incident just because they happen to be of the same group that did that incident. I mean, police officers have been hurt and killed. In New York, many have. So many have been hurt. I mean, 200 at one point I heard were hurt, and all over. And this is crazy. Just because there was a bad cop somewhere doesn't make all police bad. And all authority isn't bad, although there are some people that are Antifa. I mean, there are people that are against law, and there are people that are against authority. Now, if you wanted to read my book, you could see that the top 10 lessons to learn, which I want to go through at some point more in these videos. The second lesson, the first lesson is fear God above all. The second lesson is respect authority. And we need to teach respect of authority to our young people today, because I don't see respect of authority and property. I don't see that when I see in retail stores people just opening things up and eating things and leaving it anywhere and not caring about it. That doesn't show a respect for authority. And you see the attitude of teenagers and others that are just disobedient. I mean, you could go to the Bible and see that being a description of a generation in the last days, which maybe I'll talk about more too. If you got any questions, feel free to ask those below, and I'll try to address these in videos or in a response video at some point maybe too. But I hope you're liking what I'm saying and you're sharing this too. And I want to get more to the different pictures again. You've got the angry protest, which can lead to that looting. Then you've got the possible protest, the symbol of Colin Kaepernick and what he did in kneeling. I believe that what he did was not necessarily wrong if he felt there was injustice and he had a right to do it. But I don't think he had a right to do it during the national anthem, because it was a time where there was supposed to be a patriotic representation of the American flag and solidarity and unity with the freedoms that we have in America in order to play football. It wasn't an appropriate time for him to do it, and he shouldn't have done it then. He could have done what people are doing now and protesting and done it in a peaceful way if he wanted, and it cost him in his career and other stuff, but that is what it is. So as I say in the picture on the thumbnail here, you've got the angry one, which isn't good. You've got the stance where you're on a knee, just kind of neutral, and it could be good and it could be bad or inappropriate at that time. Or you have the one where you're bowing a knee in more of an appeal to the highest authority, and that is God. Now, friend, I hope you've been watching what I've been saying in previous videos, and how it's a tragedy if you don't have faith, if you don't believe. But I'm telling you, whether you believe it or not, there's going to come a day where every person is going to bow the knee, not in a aggressive anger, but they will know that God is the Lord, that He is the one, and they will know that. And I can share a verse with you right here now. Psalm chapter 95, verse 6 says, "O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker." He is the Creator. You must kneel before Him. You must have that attitude of kneeling before Him. And actually, this verse is quoted in Romans 14 as well, where you have the quote in Romans 14:11, where he says, "For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God." So we must bow to the Creator. We must bow to God. Now, God modeled what it meant for us to take a knee in that respect. Because Jesus Christ is God the Son who came down to this earth. And you have no better reference for that than Philippians chapter 2, starting with verse 5 and going through down to verse 10 or 11, where you have it's saying that let this mind, the mindset of thinking of others. And let me back up before I go into that passage more, going back to verse 4. Friend, you're going to bow to Jesus Christ. You're going to bow one day, whether you like it or not, and one day everybody will bow, and it says that in that chapter. But you really should be bowing or preferring other people. See, that's what serving is. And that's what it says in verse 4 there in Philippians 2, that you're not supposed to look on your own things, but look out for the best interest of others. So you should be bowing or yielding to them in that sense, not in a sense of worship, but yielding to them, showing honor and respect for other people. But as it says that Jesus is the one who modeled this, God became flesh, and Jesus is the one who had that model for us there in Philippians 2, where it says in verse 5, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who was in the form of God and didn't think it a thing to be grasped or robbed to be equal with God, but he made himself of no reputation. He took upon him the form of a servant. He was made in the likeness of men, and being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Wherefore God has also highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So, friend, I don't know what your view of taking a knee is, but I trust you won't have to wait until you're judged by God to take a knee, because you realize when it's too late that he is who he is. I trust that you will take a knee now and bow the knee to him, so that you can have him work in your life and give you the full and abundant life that you can have. I trust that you will stand against the injustices that are out there, but not do so violently. Do so in peace. We should do more like what Martin Luther King Jr. did, who even got a holiday in this country. So could America be that racist if the holiday would be named after this man? Hello, think about this. We are not, there are places where people are prejudiced and racist, and I ought to do a whole video on what race is. But taking a knee is maybe okay if you're going to show solidarity to someone that you agree that something was wrong. But don't be taking a knee in anger and putting your fist up to God or some authority. Take a knee to show your honor for someone, but in your heart, you better have bowed your knee to God, and you better be bowing to serve other people and show love to them, because that's what you owe them. As even Romans 13:8 says, we don't have any outstanding debt to anyone but to owe love to them because of the love that's been shown to us. So I hope that these thoughts will help encourage you and help you think about this issue, about when it's appropriate to take a knee. And I was going to talk about some things, and I'll just mention it here, like with Daniel. They bowed down in Daniel. In his day, Joseph people were to bow the knee to him, as it was called out in Daniel. In the Old Testament, you see him in Daniel 6:10, where it says that he had a practice of bowing his knee in prayer 3 times a day. And they wanted to get him on that, and he ended up being rescued from the den of lions there as God performed a miracle and shut their mouths. And so you better be kneeling in prayer, and go back and look at my video on prayer if you want to see that. But you better kneel to the Lord and be serving other people. So I hope you like this video. I hope you'll share it. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I post another one. And subscribe to this channel so my channel can grow and we can see this truth get out to more people. So thank you for watching again today. And take that knee to the Lord.